Okay, I'm going to show you guys how to revalve your shocks. These ones here I've got are the Bilstein 7100s. First thing you got to do is release all the pressure out of the Schrader valve in the bottom, and we've already done that. So we're going to go ahead and remove the shock from the vehicle. Okay, now we got the shock off the buggy. I want to show you this little tool that I made for holding the shock in the bench vise. It was just a 2x4 that I drilled a 2-inch hole through using a Forstner bit, or you can use a hole saw. And then I cut it in half, and then I just clamp this inside my bench vise, and it holds the shock really firmly without marring the finish. So I'll go ahead and put this in the vise. Okay, you can see how I've got the shock being held inside my bench vise. You can see how the 2x4 clamps onto it and does a really good job of holding it in place so you can work on it without having it bounce around on your table. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do in disassembling this shock is removing this wiper cap right here. So what you got to do is take something like a chisel or a screwdriver and a hammer and hammer it in through this end here. As what I'm using, this is actually a flat blade screwdriver that I modified on my grinder right over here, just to make it a little bit sharper so that it can fit down inside this very small crack here. So just a couple of taps with a hammer will get it underneath here. You work it your way around and this cap will come off. Okay, so you can see I've done just about everything I can do with my modified screwdriver here. So now we can switch over to just a regular flathead and start working this in, moving around the shock so you pull the cap up evenly. And that's all there is to it. So this is your wiper cap, and this is your first wiper seal here. So you can just slide those up and out of the way. Okay, the next thing we're going to want to do is we got to depress this, I think this is what they call their gold wiper seal, something like that. We got to push this down so that we can expose this ring clip that's inside here, so we can get that out. So all we do is you want to give it a couple of good light taps with a hammer, working your way all the way around until eventually you have enough room to pull that seal. Okay, you can start to see that I'm exposing the that ring clip. We just keep tapping and working our way around. We'll have enough room to get at it. Okay, that's probably enough right there. So you can see that we got just barely enough room to get at that ring clip right there. Okay, so for removing this ring clip, I just have a small jeweler's screwdriver here, and I just start picking down in there until I can pry the clip out, and that's all there is to that. Okay, so for this next part you'll use 2 flat blade screwdrivers, and what you end up doing is stick the flat blade screwdrivers on each side. Try to do this while holding the camera. Like so. And you use them kind of like a bottle opener, and you pry this cap up out. Now when you get to a certain point, you'll lose your leverage point, which is the outside casing of the shock here. And I'll show you a little secret that I came up with to fix that problem. Okay, so you can see that I can't pry this cap up anymore because of the angle that it's at now. So Bilstein sells a tool that fits over this that allows you to increase your leverage to pry this guy up the rest of the way. I don't have that tool, so what I did here is I just took a piece of scrap metal that I had, and if I place it right there on the other tool I've got, it allows me to get just enough more leverage to pry this guy up the rest of the way. Okay, so I used my little tool here to pry that next piece up. And now you can see that this guy will just come out, and he can kind of slide up. Ooh. Slide up and out of the way on the inner shaft. And so now, can't really see it too good right here, but underneath this fluid there's another one of those ring clamps. You just barely see it in there, that you got to remove in order to get your valve stack, which is on this shaft here, up out of the tube. So all you got to do is just dig around in there with your small screwdriver and you can pull that out. Okay, here's that other ring clamp that was down in there. You can kind of see the groove now. I raised the that inner shaft up a little bit so the fluid displaced some, and you can see that it's just like the one above it. You got to pull that out so that we can lift our valve stack out. So if we pull up just really gently, eventually you can see the valve stack will come up. You want to tip it sideways to let some of that oil drain back off of there. Okay. Alright, so there's your shock. It's pretty much disassembled now. Okay, now I've got just the inner part of the shock being held in the bench vise just by its the bottom portion, the eyelet. This will allow us to be able to easily get to our nut here to pull our valve stack off. Okay, so I took the nut off, and the rest of this stuff you can just grab all at once and it'll just come right up off that shaft, just like that. You're going to want to keep this oriented somehow and come up with some system so you don't forget which way it all goes back together. Okay, so now we can take our new set of valving, and it comes with this little piece of paper that represents your piston, and I said this side towards nut. So the way we took it off, the nut would have gone up here on this side. So our new valving will go in there just like that. We got the bottom and the top. So there's our top set of valves, our piston, and our bottom set of valves. Just like that. Okay, so we got our new valve stack on there. Next thing we got to do is put a little bit of red thread lock on the threads and on the nut, and then torque that down to 7 foot-pounds. Okay, we got our shock back in our bench vise, so we're going to go ahead and insert our piston into the outer tube. Okay, now that our piston's down far enough, we can install the ring clamp down here on this lower portion. Okay, we got that ring back in there. Now we could just slide this wiper seal down and close everything up and we'd be good to go. However, you'll notice that our oil level is pretty far below that line, and that's going to cause us to have a lot of bubbles in the system. So if we push our piston down some, that oil line will come up. The idea is we're trying to eliminate some of that air that's going to get trapped in the system. So now you can see the oil level's up pretty high. Now we can go ahead and slide this guy down. Okay, using a few soft taps of the hammer around this edge, we've got the this piece down far enough that we can install our ring down in that crevice. Okay, you can see our ring's down in there now. This step is pretty important. You want to make sure that ring's all the way seated. Otherwise, when you pressurize your shocks, they will explode. Okay, the next thing we got to do is we're going to add a little bit of red Loctite around this lip here, and then we'll hammer this guy down to close the shock back up. Okay, now you just need to repressurize your shock and install it back on the vehicle, and you should be good to go.